Hey everyone, the weather is about to shift in a big way across the United States as our recent tornado outbreak system moves out. But we're not done yet. Another storm system is expected to develop in the middle of this week, bringing some snow and even some isolated severe weather. And by the last week of March, it looks like we could see several more big storm systems. In today's forecast, I'm going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that will be impacting the U.S. over the next couple of weeks. Current situation, let's start with what's happening today. We have a huge storm system moving right along the East Coast. There's a low-end threat of severe weather from the Ohio Valley down into the southeast, with damaging winds being the main concern. But a couple of tornadoes could pop up too. I'd probably be going live today, but my AC unit is broken and it's really hot in here, so I'm making a video instead. But overall, this system will clear out by tomorrow, bringing much nicer weather along the East Coast as we head into the new week. Midweek storm system, also keeping an eye on another storm system expected to hit the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and possibly the Northeast by midweek. This one could bring some snow and even a bit of severe weather. I'll cover that in more detail in just a moment. Recent tornado outbreaks the last 2 days have been wild. We've already had 66 tornadoes confirmed across the Midwest, Deep South, and South. Friday's severe weather event alone produced over 500 wind reports, which is an absurd number, along with 37 tornado reports and plenty of hail. That's a high-end severe weather event. Yesterday wasn't as active in terms of reports, but it still felt just as intense. We had at least 36 tornado reports, 137 wind reports, and over 24 hail reports. These numbers will likely rise over the next 24 hours as the National Weather Service continues to survey the damage. Severe weather risk today. For the rest of today, we are looking at a bit more severe weather along the East Coast. Nothing like what we saw yesterday, but damaging winds and a few tornadoes are still possible. There's actually an enhanced risk of severe weather in place for western Pennsylvania, mainly for damaging winds from a few rounds of afternoon thunderstorms. We also have a 5% tornado risk today, which sounds high, but I don't expect too many tornadoes to form. Most of the tornadoes today will likely be brief and relatively weak. Still, stay alert and have a way to receive warnings just in case. There's a small chance of a stronger tornado developing in Florida, South Carolina, or Georgia, but the probability is low. Not zero, but low. Timing of today's storms will fire up this afternoon across Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and the Carolinas around 2 to 3 p.m. By 5 to 6 p.m., we could see a slightly higher tornado risk in southern Pennsylvania, around Maryland and northern Virginia. Later in the evening, storms will continue in eastern Virginia and eastern North Carolina, with damaging winds and isolated tornadoes being the main concerns. After sunset, the threat should die down to just some showers and general thunderstorms. The good news, no major nocturnal tornado threat tonight, which is something we saw yesterday near Troy, Alabama. Storms in the southeast by about 2 or 3 p.m. this afternoon. Most of the severe threat in Florida will be over. A few spotty damaging wind gusts and maybe a brief spin-up are possible before the storms fizzle out. The southeast should see much nicer weather by tomorrow. Looking ahead beyond today's system, the weather pattern will stay active. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll see some snow and rain along the west coast. Things will also clear out in the Great Plains and along the East Coast, except for the upper Midwest, where a few snow showers are possible tomorrow afternoon. By Tuesday, another storm system will move into the Central Plains. If you're thinking, wait, is this a repeat of what we just saw? Not exactly. The pressure is expected to drop to around 984 MB on Tuesday night, which is a pretty strong low-pressure system, but it won't be as extreme as last week's event. Midweek severe weather and strong winds, we could see some severe weather developing by Wednesday. While the setup won't be as intense as what we just saw, there will be enough energy in the atmosphere to create some isolated severe storms, especially in the Ohio Valley and back into Dixie Alley. The main threat will be damaging winds and possibly a couple of tornadoes. On Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning, strong pressure gradients will lead to wind gusts between 30 to 50 EMFs across much of the Great Plains and into the Midwest. This could result in downed trees, power outages, and dangerous travel conditions, so keep that in mind. Snow potential midweek. By Wednesday, this storm system will push into the Midwest, bringing the potential for heavy snowfall in areas like Iowa, Kansas City, southern Minnesota, and northern Wisconsin. We currently expect about a 50% to 70% chance of seeing 3 inches or more of snow from central Kansas to central Wisconsin on Wednesday and early Thursday. The chance of getting more than 6 inches of snow is highest in Wisconsin, Iowa, and northern Michigan, sitting at about 40% to 50% right now. Storms moving into the Northeast. By Thursday, the storm system will head into the Northeast, bringing rain and possibly a bit of snow. But by Friday, things will calm down a bit and we'll see a brief quiet period before more active weather returns. What's coming for late March? Things get a little uncertain as we head into the last week of March, but there are already signs that we could see more severe weather events. Exactly where and how intense they'll be is unclear, but keep in mind we're heading toward the peak of severe weather season in April and May. For the last week of March, we expect above-average rainfall along the East Coast and in the Ohio Valley, increasing the chances for more severe weather. Drier-than-average conditions in Texas and the Southwest, which means fire weather conditions will remain elevated in areas like Texas and Oklahoma due to low humidity and strong winds. Above-average rainfall in the Pacific Northwest, temperature roller coaster. Get ready for some wild temperature swings. A shot of cold air will hit the East Coast tomorrow. By Tuesday, warm air will return across the Great Plains and the East Coast. On Wednesday and Thursday, another low-pressure system will drag in colder air across the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Southeast, bringing snow and possibly some isolated severe weather. By next week, the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting above-average temperatures across the Great Plains, with below-average temperatures sticking around in the Pacific Northwest. Fire weather conditions will stay elevated over the next few days, especially in the central and southern plains. Strong winds, low humidity, and a lack of recent rainfall will keep the fire risk high in Texas and Oklahoma. March is typically one of the wettest months for Texas, but so far, it's been pretty dry. Hopefully, things will turn around as we head into April. Damage and power outages. Unfortunately, this storm has already been deadly. Over 20 people have died from this storm over the last couple of days. Dozens have been injured, and many are still missing. Here's a quick snapshot of the damage so far. 37 tornado reports on Friday, 32 tornado reports in the last 24 hours, 350-plus wind damage reports, 160-plus wind gust reports. Power outages, widespread power outages continue across the affected areas. Georgia, 66,000 without power. Missouri, 62,000 without power. Arkansas, 7,500 without power. Indiana, 5,600 without power. Kentucky, 7,400 without power. West Virginia, 4,100 without power. Virginia, 4,600 without power. Power outages are likely to increase as the storm moves toward the Northeast. Severe weather threat today. The tornado threat has increased for today. 5% tornado risk from northern Florida all the way through eastern Ohio, western New York, and western Pennsylvania. The main threats are damaging winds and isolated tornadoes. The hail threat remains relatively low, but a few larger hailstones could develop, especially in the southeast. Primary areas at risk today: southeast northern Florida, southern Georgia and the Carolinas, mid-Atlantic, West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio and Pennsylvania, northeast, western New York and western Pennsylvania. The National Weather Service is warning of sporadic damage and isolated tornadoes through this evening. Storm timeline this morning and afternoon. Storms will continue pushing through the Carolinas and the mid-Atlantic. Watch out for discrete supercells. These are the ones most likely to produce tornadoes. A second line of storms will form along the cold front, bringing additional threats of damaging winds and spin-up tornadoes from Kentucky to West Virginia and into western Pennsylvania. Tonight, storms will pivot toward Delmarva and the Northeast. Expect heavy rainfall and strong winds along the coast. The tornado threat should decrease after sunset, but damaging winds will remain a concern. West Coast storm coming. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, an atmospheric river is setting up over Oregon and Northern California. This storm will bring heavy snowfall to the Sierra Nevada, possibly between 2 to 4 feet in higher elevations. Expect heavy rain and flooding risks along the coast. Next big storm, Tuesday, Wednesday. After today's storm wraps up, another major system will develop by Tuesday into Wednesday. This next storm will bring strong winds across the Great Plains and Midwest, gusts of 30 to 50 mph, heavy snowfall from Iowa to Minnesota and Wisconsin, isolated severe weather risk in Dixie Alley in the Ohio Valley, primarily damaging winds and a few tornadoes. Snowfall forecast from Tuesday into Thursday. The Midwest will see significant snowfall, 50% to 70% chance of 3 inches or more in central Kansas to central Wisconsin, 40% to 50% chance of more than 6 inches in Wisconsin, Iowa, and northern Michigan. Temperature swings. Expect a wild ride in temperatures this week. Cold air will briefly settle in along the East Coast tomorrow. Warm air will push back into the Great Plains and the East Coast by Tuesday. Another cold shot will return by Wednesday and Thursday behind the low-pressure system. By next week, most of the country should trend warmer than average, except for the Pacific Northwest. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. I'll keep you posted as new information comes in.